But love doesn't pay the rent. My salary was small. Eleanor stopped when our son Michael was born. I thought budgeting was a distraction from our bond. She saw it as security. Our first big fight was about a lamp, a simple lamp. She said, "We can't just live on feelings, Arthur." I said, "What else is there?" The silence after that was cold. I worked longer hours thinking that was my proof of love. Years went by. We had Sarah. I became a principal. We looked successful from the outside. Holidays, graduations. But in the quiet at home, we were just roommates. We stopped talking about hard things. I'd kiss her cheek, say "I love you," and think those words were enough. She'd smile, but her eyes were somewhere else. I told myself it was normal. I told myself love was enough, even as I watched her become lonely. Then in 1998, she got sick, breast cancer. I was terrified. I became a whirlwind. I researched everything, made schedules, gave pep talks. I thought my frantic love could fix it. One night she grabbed my wrist. "Arthur, stop. Just sit. Just be here with me." And I didn't know how. My love was all action. She needed me to just be still. She found that comfort in a support group. I felt jealous. Can you believe that? I was jealous of her cancer group. She got better. But our marriage got sicker. The resentment built up. It exploded on our 40th anniversary. I'd planned a huge surprise dinner at our old restaurant. I came home so excited. She was sitting calmly. She said her support group was having a dinner for someone. She needed to be there. I lost my temper. I yelled about all my plans, all my love. She listened. Then she said, "You planned a party for your idea of us. They've been with me in the reality of me." She left. I sat in that private room alone. All those empty chairs. I felt empty too. After that, we were just polite. We lived like ghosts. Our kids saw it. Michael and Sarah came over one Sunday. Sarah said, "You two are miserable. Fix it or end it, but this has to stop." I talked about respect and commitment. Michael cut me off. "Dad, you've been married 55 years, but have you been partners?" That question hit me like a truck. I had no answer. They loved us enough to force us to see the truth. So I booked a counselor, Dr. Rosen. In that office, I talked about love like it was a magic force. Eleanor talked about loneliness. The doctor asked me, "Arthur, if love is the answer, what is the question you're asking?" I was stunned. We started learning a new language. Words like respect, attention, repair. I realized I'd had it backwards. Love isn't the foundation of a house. It's the roof. You need the walls of communication first, the plumbing of shared work. I'd tried to build a house starting with the shingles. Knowing that was one thing, doing it was harder. Our first test was with our granddaughter, Lily. She had bad anxiety. The old me would have taken over. This time I watched Eleanor. She listened to our daughter for hours. Then she asked, "What do you need from us?" Later at home, I made tea. I sat by Eleanor and said, "That was really hard. How are you holding up?" She looked at me. Really looked, and she cried, not from sadness, from being seen. In that moment, I wasn't just saying I loved her. I was finally being a partner. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a new blueprint. We began slowly to rebuild. Then life gave us its ultimate test. 2 years ago, I fell on an icy path and shattered my hip. The pain was excruciating, but the helplessness was worse. Eleanor, now in her late 70s, became my nurse, my advocate, my lifeline. The old me would have seen this as her duty, born of love. The new me saw the profound cost to her. One morning, struggling with a simple task, I grumbled, "I'm sorry to be such a burden." She stopped, put down the basin, and took my face in her hands. "Arthur," she said, her voice firm, "you are not a burden. This is hard, but we are doing it together. That's the difference." In her eyes, I didn't see the weary obligation I expected. I saw a determined partnership. That recovery period, for all its difficulty, became the final solid brick in our new foundation. It led me to a quiet, profound realization on our last anniversary. For our 60th anniversary, we didn't go out. We sat in the garden, hands folded together on the table between us, gnarled and spotted with age. I didn't give a grand speech. I said, "Eleanor, I finally understand. Love wasn't enough to save our marriage." She squeezed my hand, a faint smile on her lips. I continued, "Love is what made us want to save it. But the saving, that took work, humility, and a choice every single day to build something bigger than just the feeling." She nodded. "It took us long enough," she whispered. We sat in a silence that was no longer empty, but full of 6 decades of shared history, finally understood. And that brings me to today, to why I'm telling you, a stranger, all of this. So, here is my confession, from an old man who learned too late. If you are young and in love, hear me. Cherish the feeling, but don't worship it. Love is the beautiful flame, but commitment is the hearth, respect is the fuel, and communication is the oxygen. Build the structure first. If you are in the middle years, feeling that quiet distance, it is not too late. Have the courage to ask a new question, not "do we love each other?" but "how can we better care for each other?" Start there. My story isn't a tragedy. We found our way. But don't waste 60 years learning what I did. Let my long lesson be your shortcut. Let my long lesson be your shortcut. But you see, even after that anniversary, even after I finally understood, the hardest part wasn't the knowing. It was the looking back. It was sitting in my chair by the window, watching Eleanor tend to her roses and seeing all the years we'd lost. The years I'd stolen from us with my stubborn, blind faith. That's the real cost. That's the breaking point I reached in my heart, long after my mind had figured it out. I'd wake up in the night sometimes and the memories would come. Not the big fights, but the small, quiet abandonments. The Saturday mornings I'd go to my study to grade papers instead of asking about her week. The way I'd listen to her talk about a book she loved, and my mind would already be planning my reply instead of just hearing her. I built a wall, brick by brick, with my good intentions, and I left her on the other side, alone. The hardest moment came a few months after our anniversary talk. We were watching an old movie, one from the 60s. A couple was arguing, and the man said, But I love you. Isn't that enough? Eleanor made a small sound, a sigh. I looked at her. Her face was sad. I asked her what was wrong. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I believed you, Arthur. For so many years, I believed that if I just loved you more patiently, more quietly, you'd finally see me. Not the idea of me, not your wife, just me. I waited for you to ask a real question, to want a real answer, and you never did. You just kept saying you loved me. After a while, those words started to sound like, be quiet, like, be happy with this. They started to hurt. I couldn't breathe. It hurt. It physically hurt in my chest. I had thought my loneliness in that empty restaurant was the bottom. This was deeper. This was hearing that my love, the one thing I was so proud of, had been a weapon. A gentle, smiling weapon that kept her trapped. I'm sorry, I said. It was all I could say. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. I know, she said. I forgave you a long time ago in my way. But forgiving isn't the same as forgetting what it cost me. I had to build a whole life inside myself, Arthur, just to survive our marriage. That's what you didn't see. You were so busy loving me, you never wondered if I felt loved. I cried then. I'm not ashamed to say it. I sat in our living room, an old man, and I cried for the young woman she'd been, for the vibrant, laughing librarian who'd trusted a foolish boy with a philosophy. I cried for the decades she spent feeling lonely in her own home. I had been so wrong, so monumentally, tragically wrong. And the proof wasn't in our fights. It was in her calm, sad voice telling me the truth 50 years too late. That was my lowest point. Lower than the cancer, lower than the empty chairs. Because this was the final unvarnished bill for my mistake. And she was the one who had paid it. And she was the one who had paid it. That was the truth I had to finally hold in my hands, not as a theory, but as the cost of my life. Here's what I learned sitting with that bill. Love is not a magic spell you cast to make everything okay. It's not a shield. It's more like a seed, a damn beautiful seed. But if you just hold it in your hand and admire it and chant, I love this seed, it will die. It needs different soil. It needs the soil of listening, not just hearing. It needs the water of asking, how does this feel for you? Instead of saying, here's how I'll fix it. It needs the sunlight of shared silence where you're just together, not performing. I had the seed for 60 years. I only started tending the garden at the very end. So my advice, if you're where I was, stop performing. Just be there. Put down the script you've written for your marriage in your head. The one where you're the hero who loves so hard it fixes everything. Tear it up. Look at the person next to you. Ask one real question. What does a good day look like for you? What's something I do that makes you feel alone? And then, this is the hardest part. Listen. Don't plan your defense. Don't explain your love. Just take it in. That act, that simple, terrifying act of receiving your partner's reality is worth 10,000 I love yous. It's the first brick in a real wall. And if you're older, thinking it's too late, that the habits are set in stone, I'm 81, Eleanor is 79. We had 55 years of quiet distance. It wasn't too late. It's never too late to stop being wrong. You don't need years to start. You just need today. This conversation. this afternoon. You say, I think I've been loving you my way and not seeing yours. Can you help me see? The humility in that question will do more than a lifetime of proud declarations. You still have time, maybe not decades, but now is enough. Now is all we ever really have. This is why I'm talking to you. I don't want your story to be my story. I want my long, painful lesson to be your shortcut. If this old man's confession meant anything to you, if it made you think of your own life, your own relationships, then do something for me. Help this message find someone else who needs to hear it. Share this. Let's shorten the learning curve for as many people as we can. And I'd like to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what's one small thing you can do today to tend the garden, not just admire the seed? Your story might be the nudge someone else needs. If you want more conversations like this about the real work of love and life, subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss them. And if you're carrying a story of your own, a lesson learned the hard way, consider sharing it. There's a form linked below where you can submit your story. Sometimes telling it is the first step to understanding it. We're all just students in this, some of us with longer report cards than others. Let's learn together.